Hi, my name is Jamie Tomey, and I am pleased to welcome you to the Evanston Bound Quarantour series, brought to you by Artist Bookhouse. Each week, we get to talk to some amazing book artists and writers, letterpress printers, and paper makers. It's such a good time. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Tomey. Welcome to this week's Evanston Bound Quarantour, brought to you by Artist Bookhouse. I'm so excited this week because we're speaking with Emil Ferris. And if you are not familiar with her graphic novel, this gorgeous, gorgeous cover, and look at how thick this book is. It's very big and very heavy, and I could do my workout right now with just this book. It's awesome. And if you haven't read it yet, you need to, because it's just, there are no words, or there are a lot of words. A lot of people have already said all the words. So let me go through with the bio, and then we'll welcome. Emil Ferris grew up in pre-urban Renewal Chicago at a time when Chicago was a down-at-the-heels blue-collar palace, where the silent picture stars of Essanay Studios still hobbled the streets of Uptown. And can I just say that's a gorgeous introductory sentence to a bio. Ferris gets a good portion of whatever strength or inspiration she has from the beauty and tenacity of this amazing city. She loves it so much, she can be brought to tears while simply writing the L, but enough about that. Again, that paragraph of introduction, Emil, is such a gorgeous thing, and I sort of just stole it from your website and changed it to not be but it's just so great. I love it. And it also speaks to Chicago. Okay, so let's continue. The School of the Art Institute, SAIC, is her alma mater. The Art Institute of Chicago figures prominently in her life, less as a repository for artifacts than a restaurant for the eyes. Ferris recalls quite a few wonderfully escapist days spent playing hooky from Lane Tech High School, during which she perfected techniques for dreaming herself into paintings. If you've perused her work, of course you've seen monsters. It wasn't possible for Ferris to grow up in Mad Men era Chicago and not believe in monsters. Growing up in an ornately grimy Gotham combined seamlessly with Ferris's childhood addiction to creature features, a late-night Saturday airing of famous and often offbeat black and white B-movies of the monster genre. And we're going to talk about this a little bit in the conversation, but no doubt these two influences have had a big, hairy, clawed hand in making her a lifelong fan of creaturely, reverential, and undead beings everywhere. So I just want to plug your website, because if people haven't visited your website, it's like this really gorgeous rabbit hole of your work. So it's Emil Ferris.
It's going to go away, though. It's almost gone.
What?
Yeah, it's going to be rehauled so that there's nothing about the book on it, and I made it 10 years ago. So I'm actually,
new website then?
They're brand new.
Okay, so visit the website before it goes and becomes a ghost, and then you'll let us know what your new website is, of course, so we can promote it for you, because
that's really kind of you.
Yeah, of course, because it's necessary if you have a change, that it gets out there. Oh, and Nancy says her husband's grandfather as a kid delivered lunches to SNA.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh my gosh,
that's really cool.
So welcome to our quarantour. How are you doing today?
How is everybody? I mean, let me just see how many folks we have here.
I believe now we have about 22 hanging out. And
is it? I don't think I see everybody. Oh, I might. Andy's waving at me. Andy, thank you, Andy. Is there any? And Virginia, I see Ruth. Hi, and I see.
It's like. What is that show that was when back in the day where they held up the
line?
And they were like, I see you, and you sat in front of the TV waiting for your name to be called.
Yeah, I love that. I used to watch that show underneath my grandmother's ironing board while she ironed.
Oh, wow.
I tried not to get too excited so I didn't get burnt.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So usually we start with the question, how did you become a book artist or how did you become a librarian? But for you, I wanted to just kind of ask, how did you become an artist? Not necessarily a graphic novelist, but how did you become an artist?
Well, I don't think I would have if it had not been for my amazing parents who are both artists. And why I got big all of a sudden. Oh, hi me.
Uh,
I I was born with really severe scoliosis. At the time, they didn't know why I didn't walk. Um, so I was almost 3 years old before I walked the first time. And what my mother did, because I really couldn't explore the world, is that she kind of created me a little studio on the living room floor where she allowed me all these newspapers. And I think I was first obsessed with comics because I could cut them out and collage them and do
oh,
my own drawings around them. And I began to do observational drawings of all the things that I couldn't actually touch because
oh,
I couldn't walk. So I think I drew before I was doing anything else. Um,
oh,
and really, I'm fortunate that I had artist parents because, in another family, drawing might have been discouraged. But
yeah.
because I had parents who valued art much more than they valued really almost anything else, um, it wasn't discouraged. I was really fortunate.
So it was kind of your first language then.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy cool. And also the fact that it was your circumstance because you were able to sit up or were you laying down?
No, I was able to sit up,
Yeah.
but I wasn't able to walk.
Yeah. So it's kind of like your parents provided this space for you to be in.
Oh yeah,
To
and
explore. I love.
exactly. And there were art books. I mean, they made sure there were just tons of art books and visits to the museum. And art, I would say, was my parents' religion,
Oh, wow.
more so than any other religion, which I think I also believe my faith. Art is
Is
also my faith, yeah.
Yeah. So tell us more about like when you did start walking, how did that change your kind of outlook and your observational drawing situation? How did that change and shift when you were 3 and you started walking? This is such an early age to think about observational drawing too. That's really kind of cool.
I think it was earlier than that, actually, though, because my
Oh,
mother said something that she was amazed that I drew all the petals on a daisy, and I think I may have been anywhere between 6 months and a year.
oh
So
wow.
it was something that I think it was just so in the air in my parents' household. Because
Yeah.
they met in art school. They met at the Art Institute of Chicago. Um, I think it was inescapable. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I could have not been an artist.
Yeah, it's in your it's an innate thing in you. That's
It might
great.
be, it might be. And with my brother as well, who's an amazing, amazing sculptor and draftsperson and painter. I mean, he's just all of that. So I think I think that's what we got. And my daughter is also just an amazing writer and visual artist. So
So that vein of creativity came through and was encouraged because sometimes it comes through and it's not encouraged. And so
I know.
people aren't they don't grow up with that
Yeah.
expression. Yeah,
That's the thing that bothers me the most about our world is
yeah,
that there are so many brilliant people who did not know what they were for an awfully long time and were not encouraged in what it was they loved. And I
yeah,
think that's the great big crime of
yeah,
our world is that we don't when children go to school should be about. I mean, everybody's going to learn to add and multiply and subtract, and they're going to learn geography. And I mean, there are a lot of things that are just going to happen. But school should be about asking, the first question should be, what do you love? I mean,
mm,
what if the first question when a child went to school is, what do you love?
oh wow. That would change the entire world.
Oh, I know. I know. Oh my gosh. I want that world. I want that world. And I want people not to have to ever hide who they are.
Yeah.
Oh my, that'll make me cry if I think about that world. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's kind of when I was picking out pictures to bring to us. I chose pictures that really reinforce that, because I think we're at a moment in time when we really have to talk about the fact that we've got people who want us to go back to being a culture that hides who we are.
Yeah.
And I think
Individual,
we,
collective.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I love that. And speaking of the slideshow, do you want to go ahead and we can start sharing?
No, I want you to just talk and then it'll naturally come about. Like
Oh,
you know what I mean? I really think,
yeah. So I want to revisit the idea of asking people, what do you love? Because I think, like you said, it would change the world if we asked kids in the moment or when they go to school right away, when the first thing, the first question is, what do you love? And also, who are you? How do you identify, and what's in your soul? What would happen if we started to do that with adults too?
Oh, I think this is everything.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I
Yeah.
mean, there's this one important question. People very quickly after the book was published, and I think I had an event at the Chicago Humanities Fest, I think it was, or maybe, I think it was. I'm not sure. But anyway, so many people over 35 were at that event.
Yeah.
Hundreds came, and I was surprised. I didn't think 12 would be there. Um, and I did a signing afterwards, and the number one thing that people said to me was, when I heard about you and I heard you on NPR, I realized I always wanted to do X,
Oh.
and I started doing it.
Oh.
I mean, we had a lot of tears that day. There
Yeah.
was a lot of crying, because you know, you do all the things the society tells you to do. You get up every day, you take care of those children, you go to that job. You don't love it. You
Yeah.
don't love it, but you do it because you made a contract. And then
Yeah.
one day you realize there's something else you want. And you want it so much because it's what's always fed you. It's what's always been where you were alive. And then you hear about somebody who's 50 years old and their book is published. You know, they start working on it when they're 45. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you're like, well, okay, I'm not too old and I'm going to do this thing. And there really is no too old. There's no
Yeah.
too old. There's no too disabled. There's no too poor. There's no too any of that.
There's
You
no
know,
too young, there's no too old, there's no
exactly.
too poor. Yes. I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
Now,
That's important.
it is important. And so for the book, and again, Maria kindly, librarian Maria, book artist librarian Maria, dropped it into the chat, the title and the Goodreads page of the for the book. And of course, it's my favorite thing is monsters, is the particular book that you're talking about. But I wanted to ask, for this, you were an illustrator prior to creating your book. How did the idea manifest for the book? And as I understand it, you drew images. You've always drawn with ballpoint. Is that right? Or is it kind of like you've experimented with different kind of techniques and ways of doing? But the book, can you talk a little bit more about how this came about with this sort of, because it does look like, of course, those of you who haven't seen it, it does look like it's on notebook paper, and the way it's printed and with ballpoint. So can you talk a little bit about how this book did come about for you?
Well,
Uh-oh, did you
have I
freeze?
lost? No, I was thinking, maybe I was thinking, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
When I was a kid, I drew in notebooks. You know, my father got a job designing toys, and it was his first really good job. prior to that, he'd been a welder. He'd he'd done whatever he could do, cartographer, I believe, and he just didn't do very well. He wasn't making an awful lot of money, and we lived in a high-rise building in Uptown that was what we would now consider to be like a low-income building. And it
Okay.
was a wonderful place because there were people from all over the world there. But it was a sort of a subsidized rental situation, and he he eventually got a good job, and we were able to move. But during that time, we were very, very poor. I remember, you know, there would be a class outing, and I remember it costing 65 cents. And I
Mm,
remember my mother saying, I don't have that. And so I
yeah.
couldn't go with the class. And I stayed behind with a teacher and another student who was also, whose parents were indigent, alcoholic. He was Native American. And we just drew the whole time. We had a wonderful time. But I mean, there was the sadness of not even having what the poorest kids had, because my parents were really not at that point doing very well.
Yeah.
And I got every year, I got notebooks and I got pens.
And you
And
just, that was
that
your,
saved my life. That
yeah.
saved my life. That saved my mind. That
Mm,
made it possible for me to escape the reality. And so when I decided, I wrote a short story, and I decided that it was in the first person. It was about a little girl in Uptown. And I decided to, well, werewolf, a little werewolf, really. And I decided to make it like one of the notebooks that I had as a child. And it's
yeah.
these small things that save our lives. Just that
Yeah.
notebook and a few pens, you know?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Also, the teacher who stayed back with you, or the that you were with, allowed you to just sit and draw, because otherwise you could have been doing worksheets or whatever. And that was, um I also, love the sense that I'm getting from the adults in your life growing up, is that they recognized you and they encouraged you and supported you for who you are and were. Is that true? Do you find that to be true, that that happened, or did you have people also saying, no, you're not an artist, you can't be an artist, or don't draw, you're wasting time? Did you ever have that?
Oh yeah. Um,
Yeah. You ignore it?
um, you know, I think I look back now and I think I had all of the obstructionism that anybody needs. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the way babies are born is that there's this obstructionist system. The mother's body does not just say, let me flower and allow this child to be born. No, the mother's body provides resistance, and the child is pushed out into the world. And I think that there was resistance in my world. And what did it do? Well, now when I encounter objections and obstructions, I'm so able to handle that
Yeah.
because I've experienced that in my life. I've experienced situations that were not conducive to growth. I mean, I was very fortunate in that I had some support, but there were also people who weren't supportive. And um, we don't live in a society that's supportive to the idea. I mean, when you're a child and they say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you say, well, I always wanted to be a monster. That was the only thing I ever wanted to be. I didn't want to be anything else. Artist was maybe a, a passable fifth to being a monster, you know, after many other things, you know, like, I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe even pirate.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But the culture isn't receptive to people expressing their truth, and it's gotten better in some ways. And I
Yeah.
think, and that, but unfortunately, we have a backlash right now. We have
Yeah.
people who want to go back to this repression,
Yeah.
and
People into some sort of ideal, quote unquote ideal, or shape that they view as exactly perfect and not perfect for the person themselves. if that makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think they realize yet what's going to be going away.
Yeah.
Everything they love is gone under
Yeah.
what they want. All the
Yeah.
television that they think is just theirs. The people who create all of these stories for them are the very people who will not have the right to marry, will not have the right to conduct their autonomy over their own bodies, will
Hmm.
not have a voice any longer. These
Yeah.
people don't understand that they're trading everything away for a pipe dream.
For a pipe dream.
Yeah.
On that note, I'm going to go ahead and do my screen share here so we can go through some of your incredible slides. Let me pull you up. Okay, so in our conversation earlier, you mentioned that this, oh, let me spotlight you as our video here. So you should be the person on the side. I'm hoping that works. Can you chime in real quick and make sure that, because I'm doing the screen share and I'm doing the recording, is Emil on the side for you, Ken?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I can't tell on my laptop where we are. And I apologize for that, Ken. I know that's a lot to edit out. So Emil, was in our conversation prior to this, you had mentioned that this is when you were 15 years old. Can you talk a little bit more about this stunning image?
Well, the image was taken by a photographer who was a friend of my family, whose name was Pat Walsh, and she was a pretty fantastic photographer. So I'll just say that at the outset. I had decided, well, I had always loved what, men's clothing, and I wanted to wear men's clothing. And, to be quite frank with you, if it had been a different age, I probably would not now be female.
Oh,
Yeah, I think that would have been different. But it wasn't the age when that was a possibility, or that I knew of.
yeah,
Um, and So I loved everything to do with men's clothing, and so for a period of time, that's what I wore, and I loved it. I completely loved it. I still do, and the only thing that keeps me from wearing what would be and was considered men's clothing, but I would consider it monsters clothing, would be that I don't find things in my size that,
oh,
that I think are particularly good, and I'm not a big fan of dry cleaning. So I've had to think about this very hard. I kind of want to. I wish I could design my own line of suits. Um, but yeah, this was how I went to my first prom, and I enjoyed it enormously. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I love that. And also right now in this weird pandemic time, a lot of us are not getting dressed up, you know, who's wearing a suit around the house at this point too.
Jamie,
I don't,
can I just tell you something? I
yeah.
right now am wearing this scarf because I have given up bras. They're horrible. And I love this pandemic for that
For the
alone.
comfort level of the pandemic, yoga pants, no bra,
Yep.
you wear makeup
Yep.
and conform to the, norms of the outside
Oh
world.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
You
yeah.
might think I'm wearing great shoes, but these are horrible shoes that I've reconfigured into slippers. I mean, and I've worn them the same pair for the last 7 months.
I,
I absolutely and completely love that quality about what we're doing. Yeah,
and I wonder
the
how
informality.
much back to in the style in the world, because I have to say, like, not wearing makeup except for maybe once a week has made my skin so much better. So why would I wear, and I don't wear as much, so I don't know, it's kind of an odd thing. So talk to us about this poster.
Isn't she great? Now, I haven't seen this movie yet. A friend recommended it to me. I love the title under it, The Gorgon. She had a face only a mummy could love, which and of course, mummy is M-U-M-M-Y. I love this very, very much. It's I'm thinking a lot about the Gorgon, and there's a reason why. Recently, a sculpture, it kind of made art news, was placed in between the two courthouses, one of which the Weinstein trial happened. And hmm?
Do you want me to switch the slide?
Well, we could, yeah, maybe it would make more sense that way.
Oh, no, we're back. We didn't, well, you know what? Let me jump to this one. Is this what you mean?
Yeah, this is an article, and there have been many. Famously, one of our preeminent art critics, Jerry Saltz, has weighed in unfavorably about the sculpture, calling it kitsch, which is fine with me. This is it, and I mean, I was in Florence and was able to visit the sculpture on the right here, and curse at it a little bit because I found it so obnoxious. So I did enjoy the fact that this sculpture on the left was created. I enjoy the fact that it's getting a prominent display. I don't claim that it is, the single most amazing sculpture I've ever seen. It is, I think, quite adequate and quite well done. Figurative sculpture is not something that's really studied right now. There aren't a lot of folks doing it. I think the sculptor did a good job with it personally. It isn't, the point is that despite the fact that it's being panned by an awful lot of people, I think it's really an important thing. I think it's important to retell stories, to tell them,
Yeah. I'm going to go back to the article thing. So it's the Me Too Medusa sculpture that's across from the courthouse where Weinstein, of course, one of the biggest cases in the Me Too era, which is also tricky to talk about because, of course, Me Too sexual assault has been happening for years, and in Hollywood in particular, swept under the rug. So let's go back to.
Yeah, go to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're, the way if we want to go one more, let's go one more. And this is a picture, of course. I started this after having seen the
Me Too Medusa.
Yeah, no, I hadn't seen that yet, but I had seen the
one
breastplate that Michelangelo painted, or was it Da Vinci? Oh my gosh, I've forgotten.
I don't know.
Yeah, I've forgotten. But
the Medusa's head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I started this drawing on a stage in Lucca, Italy, because I wanted to talk about the act of sewing Medusa's head back on, and that is essentially, in my world, that's what we're doing. We are reattaching Medusa's head, and we know we have to. She was an earth goddess of the highest order in Libya, apparently, and she was demoted by the Greeks because it was felt that she was too powerful. So they created this story around her that she was raped and then punished and vilified and, set off to the side, and that her power, if you've read my book, was that she made men hard. Well, okay. And what woman's power isn't that? So, yeah, I have a great sympathy for Medusa. I love Medusa. I worship Medusa in my own way. And the idea that, quite a few people are bashing on this new sculpture of her. My response, I said on Instagram to somebody, "You're wrong," because they were just saying, "Oh God, it's terrible," and all of this, along with the Jerry Saltz. And I said, well, it's easy to demean and diminish and dismiss something that you don't need. And that's my problem with people panning it, because I can see a time when men, and we have so many amazing men who are allies to women, and we have so many. I can see a time when they will be bringing their daughters to take a picture beside that statue. And there's a reason they'll be doing that. They'll be doing that because they know that if you raise a daughter in this society, she is far more likely to be physically, sexually assaulted than your son is. She is far more likely to live under the weight of hundreds of thousands of stories and cultural memes that describe to her her own objectification and make her less empowered than her brothers. That is an absolute freaking fact. And there are men out there who are raising daughters and they're refusing that. And they're beautiful. These are beautiful people. And they're saying no, and that women as well are refusing this for their daughters. And they're saying, no, I want you to grow up thinking a different story. And so here's a Medusa that presents another story. The artist said she is a Medusa who has kept her boundary, who has instigated a boundary. In other words, you can't come to my house and cut my head off. Seems like a really reasonable boundary, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
And I like the idea that in that moment when a woman is thinking, do I fight this person who is trying to deprive me of my human rights? In that moment, that sculpture comes to mind.
Okay.
In some way, I fight them. And many times for women, they can't fight. They're not, you know, if you're under threat of your life, you can't fight your attacker. If you're a 5-year-old child, you can't fight your attacker, but you can fight for yourself at some point in the story. And so that Medusa represents that to me. That's why I don't appreciate people like Jerry Saltz weighing in with his art opinions, who I generally respect, but I don't appreciate people. Essentially, I'll be quite frank, I don't appreciate white men weighing in regards to what I or others of my sex require to be in this flesh. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Just thinking about, you said a lot. And so just thinking about the fact of so many moments in a woman's life that we grow up with, these moments in our lives that, like you said, maybe there's a moment that seems small to other people, but they don't live it. Or it's a big moment with assault or attack. And thinking about that story being told or negated from someone who doesn't understand it. Does that make sense?
Right.
Or isn't able to, or thinks they have the right to tell that story for you or change the story for you because of their own, just that they think they have the privilege and they think they have the right.
Well, that was, I don't know if that's, if you're talking about the fact that the sculptor is a man. I'm not sure if that is part of the conversation for you. It is for a lot of people.
The sculptor of the Medusa new sculpture is a man? Okay, I didn't know that because I thought.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? And I wasn't sure if that's what you were referring to, but I kind of.
No, I'm talking about the people panning the sculpture.
Yeah.
Or negating the stories of women in general.
Exactly. I understand your meaning now.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think they don't. I think that we count among, I mean, certainly Jerry Saltz is an ally. I mean, he's an absolute ally to women artists. He has been one of the most, vocal supporters of women in the arts in the country, maybe in the world.
Okay.
So I don't think that his position is, I think we're gone. Are we gone? Or are we still talking to folks?
No, we're still talking to people. My screen share popped out for a second on my computer. So yeah, you're still on the.
I think I think it's just that, and I think people have issues. We've gotten to a weird place where we don't know for sure if men can be feminists or if they can have opinions about what it is to be female. I think some do quite well at it. I think some men develop characters in their stories that represent women very well.
Mhm.
Um, I would hate to get to the point where you have to be an egg to talk about omelets. You know what I mean? I think I think we have to be aware that an artist can understand things through empathy that don't require them to have lived that life.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's my opinion. Um, so I welcome allies. I welcome. Uh, there just aren't enough. For instance, if you were trans in this world, there's a minority of trans people, so there have to be allies. There
Yeah.
have to be people who will stand up for the rights of others,
Yeah.
especially those in the minority. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So tell us about this image as well. Where, talk about this.
Well, this is an interesting. We're at an interesting moment, aren't we?
Mhm.
Um, we're at an interesting moment because this is Judith, who's posing. This is a painting done uh, in front of a painting at the Art Institute of Chicago by the same name, and the artist escapes me, and that's my fault. I should know it, but I can't remember it. I could look it up and post that to your site because I hate not knowing. It's so disrespectful. But of course, we know the story of Judith is that she was her people were being assaulted by a foreign army, and she snuck into the camp of the general, who was said to be absolutely unapproachable. He was said to be almost magically able to have victories.
Mhm.
And it was the eve of the assault of her town when they were going to murder all the men and probably rape and enslave all the women and children. And she went and dressed very beautifully, and he drank with her, and I'm sure there was some sex involved. And then when he was asleep, she cut his head off,
Yeah.
which I love. I love. I freaking love that fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need more Judith. We
Yeah.
all need more Judith. And I'm not advising people to cut people's heads off or anything of the kind. But I think that in the spirit of Judith, um, we need
Ah,
to act in the spirit of Judith more.
okay. So I think Ken dropped into the chat the name of the Jan Saunders von Hernensen, which is, of course, totally butchered in pronouncing
But you
the.
try, and I appreciate it. She's
Okay.
just such a strong and beautiful.
Yeah.
Uh, she's so strong. And
Okay.
there's something else that happens an awful lot. Women's bodies, when portrayed in art, are really, really criticized. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much of an assault being directed at this Medusa because, but I
Yeah.
think it's just that women's bodies are very criticized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their representation, it's what we do to women. We are just so interested in their bodies and I mean, and right now, I think there are Supreme Court hearings
Yeah.
that underscore our interest in having power over women's bodies. And I'm not sure why, as a culture, we want so much power, except that they're magical, except that if you can create life inside your body, then you're powerful. And
Yeah. And
that's
that's,
a frightening thing.
and to have control over that is something that causes, like you said, that power. Let me go to the next slide.
On the Medusa theme, I don't know if in anticipation of potentially talking about anything I'm working on now. This is not Bic. This is pen and ink, and I'm working on other stories, but they do have themes that resonate with the story that I just told, or I'm
Yeah.
still telling.
So yeah, we can talk about future work as well. I love, one of the things that strikes me about monsters, that my favorite thing is monsters, is how there's black and white and there's color that stands out, and just how you play with the black and white ink, black and white versus color ink, how you play off of those two, faded versus then very bright on each page, if that makes sense. So is this work that you're working on going to have that same quality? Are you thinking
Yeah.
it's all going to be black and white, or are you working with the color as well?
Well, I'm working with color as well for the next set of stories. And I'm working in such a way whereby I get to be a little more free and use other medium. It is. I also do things in Bic because I love Bic, and it's so easy for me. I mean, these other mediums are more of a challenge, and I think every artist that's hearing me knows exactly what I'm saying. I kind of love a challenge. I love the not knowing and the chipping away at that uncertainty.
And the surprise element that comes with it.
I think so, yes. The surprise element is pretty fantastic, enjoyable.
Yeah.
And so my protagonist in forthcoming material will be a child like I was, who is bedridden for a lot of her life, and who has severe disability, and draws in order to understand the world. So in so many ways, this future protagonist or present protagonist is very much like Karen, but also very different for reasons I can't say yet.
Okay, Katie is mentioning that she loves the color and shading of this image.
Oh,
And
that's
this is, you drew, and then it looks like you've painted on top of the drawing.
Mhm.
Did you use watercolor or another kind of paint?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Watercolor? Okay. And what kind of, I'm going to get technical here. So what kind of paper, I'm going to go back to the one before, this one and this one in the future work. What kind of paper are you using to draw on with these?
A really heavy Bristol.
Okay, so it's going to hold up definitely to the ink, but also to any kind of wet thing that you put on top of it. I love that. Okay, yeah. So next slide is your thank you slide. That's awesome.
From the bottom of my heart,
Ah,
monstrous heart.
that is phenomenal. Like the arms of hugs and the legs of heart.
Yeah, and the ventricles hugging you.
Yeah, that's so great. And of course, creepy and wonderful. All right, I'm going to stop this share here and come back to our conversation. So yeah, so the story that you're working on now, you're in the drawing phase, you're in writing phase. Where are you with that?
I'm in the drawing. I'm mostly doing drawings for it and having some editing done of it.
Yeah, that and this isn't the sequel to My Favorite Thing is Monsters, because that's already way done, because it's published next year, right?
I can't really say.
Oh, secret. Okay.
Secret. Yeah,
Okay.
there's some secrets. I went through some things. I think everybody goes, when you publish a book, you go through things. I
Yeah.
went through some major disappointments with the book that I can't talk about right now. And they affected my capacity to work on the book. They gave me some amount of writer's block. So I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, and the not disappointment, the most wonderful thing was the reception the book received. And that was just fantastic.
Yeah.
That I cannot, not only can't I fault it, I can't even fully realize or embrace it. It's been so beyond anything I could have anticipated. And I am so extraordinarily grateful to the people who published me for that. I am incredibly grateful to them. And I'm so grateful to the readership It's been amazing.
And now, this is going to be a weird question, but do you think of the audience when you're working, or is it just kind of you're working through the story as you go and the audience will come?
It's kind of both. I mean, sometimes it occurs to me that I need to be explicit in certain ways. When I was working on the first book, I kept imagining, well, I met this kid. He was younger than me. It was in a military household. I knew right away that he was gay.
Yeah.
That his father was in the military. I had been dating a guy who I went to visit him in the military, and for a brief time, for a night, I think I stayed in the house of this family. I was put up, and I met the kid who was maybe 13 or 14. And I could tell that he was controlling all his movements, really, making sure that he didn't show the fact that he was gay, that there was no movement in his body that would betray that. They were very Christian. The family was very Christian, and the father was very strict. And I felt so terrible watching that.
Yeah.
It hurt me. It hurt me a lot. And I thought, we're better now. We're better as a society. But right now, you look at the people who want us to go back to that.
Yeah.
They really want people to be unable to be who they are. And so when I was working on the book, I thought a lot about people who will get this book because it'll be in their school library, and it will be oppositional to everything they're being taught they should want. And hooray! Hooray! Great. It felt like I was making maybe a little key to the lock of their life, that they could stick this key in and turn the lock and then get out into this freedom,
and understand and themselves and grow from that. And that's where you're on. I love that. And so one of the questions that I had come up with for this, and you sort of touched on it a little bit, but the fact of the words and images and the story and image coming together seamlessly. Do you write first? Do you come up with the drawings first? Or is it like the story is a grain in your brain and it kind of all comes out at once? Which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
I would say the writing, except that what so frequently happens is that the writing is, I don't know, there's like a weird bridge between the two spheres of my brain. It's a strange bridge.
Yeah.
I did see a representation of that bridge in Lucerne, Switzerland, and they call it the bridge of the dance of death, I think. And it was this great bridge that had all these small they weren't that small. There were these rectangular paintings, and in the paintings there were skeletons. It was to remind you, it was almost like the Stations of the Cross. And so you would walk this bridge, and you would see that death was with the seamstresses, and death was with the cheesemakers. And it was this way of you remembering death is always with us, which is so Swiss. I mean, they're great. They're great people. They're brilliant. And they saved their culture, they really preserved it. And so the bridge in my mind between the two spheres is like that. So sometimes I will be, I'll write everything, but really death comes in and says, I defy you. You're not going to get to do it the way you thought you were.
Yeah.
You thought you were going to have this long whatever. Well, I don't want that. And then I sit down and I do a drawing and I realize, no, it's different than that. The writing exists, but suddenly the drawing tells me story that the writing did not tell me. It's just weird that way. And
so they kind of go back and forth, like your brain working in this double layer kind of way. Leah mentions memento mori.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very much so.
So how has your work changed during COVID, during this no bras, no going outside, slipper shoes. How has your work changed, or has it?
I don't know that it's really changed. I think it's just that it's become more important, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. Okay.
It's become a place of respite for me, even more, and also differently, because it's a little bit painful to go to it sometimes, because I'm not able to do the things that would give me a moment of getting distance from it. I'm
Yeah.
in my studio so intensively that I've had to create little landscapes. And one of my little landscapes is ghost stories. I've been listening to things that really scare me so that I can go to this scared place. And it's almost like a different place, which is why if you look in the background, you'll see my little figure. And if you see him move while we're talking, oh, I'm just kidding, sort of. Um,
Uh,
I had a residency right before COVID began, and it was in a haunted church.
oh.
Yeah, in Quebec, Canada. And it was so haunted that the person who took the residency right before me left in the middle of the night crying. I was told that by the radio personality, very beautiful woman who interviewed me and then informed me that the bets were on about whether I'd make it through the residency,
Yeah.
because I did experience intensive things that I could not explain.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's incredible.
Well, I've been
Uh,
kind of inviting that into my life right now because, a ghost is company.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's some sort of thing there with you, and if you live alone, that makes a difference. Um, so I wanted to talk. We only have a few more minutes left, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the skipping school and going to the Art Institute to feast your eyes. And during normal times, of course, that's more, we can do that. But what work there in particular here in Chicago at the Art Institute draws you to it, and why? And then in the overall world, when you go to a museum somewhere else, what kind of artwork draws you, I guess, would be the sort of overall question, but specifically for the Art Institute and that place of feasting your eyes and getting the restaurant for your soul idea. But so what kind of work draws you to it?
I love the Gothic stuff. I love things done during the Middle Ages. I also love surrealism, and I don't see that there's an enormous difference. I pretty much love all of it. There's very little that doesn't feed me. Uh,
Mm,
but in particular, I enjoy the stuff from the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, because there was such a habit of embedding symbols and clues and secrets and shadows and resonances
yeah.
in the work. And I when I was at the Louvre for recently, and I did a kind of an involved event with adults.
Mm,
And the assignment that I gave them was to go into the museum and within the span of a gallery, a smaller gallery, and find a painting, and then sit down and really draw it and
mm.
study it. And to a person, every single person found things I'd never seen before.
Oh, in their
Yeah,
individual paintings.
yeah.
Wow.
They sat down, and I'm remembering one in particular that I really need to document, because they found faces in the foliage, and I looked and said, "They're there. You
Oh,
found these." And I
yeah.
was amazed. I was excited, and they were excited. And then beyond that, the assignment was to create a story, to essentially enter the painting and
Yeah.
find yourself within it and create a narrative. And they did. And these were fantastic narratives. I mean, angels became important characters with duplicitous natures, and these children became werewolves, and I mean, lots of people came into the world of the painting, and understood it and created stories around it and exposed it. And I thought, yeah, I could have done that once a week for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I love
Because I got so much from it.
And
You
that
know,
also to how we look at art and how we look at things, where if we spend time with something, there's more things that show up for us. There's more that comes out of it.
I couldn't have said it better. Exactly. Jamie, that's so exactly it. This is our birthright. This is our inheritance. You know, this is, and I'm not just talking about Western culture. I'm talking about all art, all music, all literature, all poetry, all science. This belongs to us.
Mm-hmm.
This is ours. And the idea that anybody will apportion it to us or decide we can't have it, or that it's only for a certain group of us, that's complete crap. I mean, it's ours, and it's our birthright, and it's
and we
what's
eat it, and
you know.
Oh, I love that.
And the idea, and I like what you just said. I like what you just said, because really, I was at the Louvre and I was there for a month, and I would be able to go into the Louvre and draw. And that was just, you know, imagine me, a kid who was sitting with my Native American friend in school and drawing for 6 hours. Imagine me, that kid who couldn't afford to go to the art museum because it didn't have the 65 cents. I'm at the Louvre, you know, 50 years later, and I'm there for a month, and they're like, oh, and let's give you an apartment in Montmartre. And, you know, I mean, everything else that you could possibly imagine happens to me. Well, what I noticed that really bothered me is that people were going through with such speed, and they were saying things, especially Americans, were saying things like, well, we got it done because we saw the Mona Lisa and the this and the that, and so that's done.
Yeah, check it off the list.
Yeah. And I was like, no, you would have been better if you had gone in, picked any 5 paintings, and spent 20 minutes per painting really looking at it, or even just one. It would have been more meaningful. And so what you said, exactly. Yeah.
I want to thank everyone so much for being here for this conversation, and for just joining us for our Quarantour today. These Quarantours happen every single week, Thursdays at noon, same Zoom link, same time, same place. And we have different artists and writers and librarians and bookish people each time. Please visit our website, artistbookhouse.org. And if you would like to see more of this programming and support us in our goals, just donate whatever you can. Thank you, thank you. Hi again. Thank you so much for watching this week's Quarantour. We really appreciate your support. If you want to learn more about our guest from today, please read the description below. And if you'd like to support more programming like this, coming from Artist Bookhouse, please visit our website at artistbookhouse.org/donate. Thank you again for joining us.